Your phone's on stun, right?
5 people. Let's do the thing.
Okay, you got the wave.
All right, we'll just go. Good evening, and welcome to the RSU 14 Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. Today is November 2nd, 2016, and the time is 8 o'clock. And Superintendent, may I have a roll call?
Sure can. Kate Brooks.
Here.
Eric Colby.
Here.
Jamie Cummins.
Here.
Jennifer Fleck. Diana Forsland.
Here.
Marge Gavoni. Pete Hensler. Here. Don Dillon. Megan Osgood. Anna Keeney.
Here. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we are privileged to have our representatives present. And I'll let each of you introduce yourselves, and then we'd like to hear your opinions on Referendum 2. We'll start with you if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm State Representative Patrick Roy. I represent District 25, which is half of Wyndham.
Good evening. I'm Representative Sue Austin, and I represent portions of Gray, Raymond, Casco, and all of Fry Island.
I'm Senator Bill Diamond. Good evening. I represent Wyndham, Raymond, Casco, Baldwin, Fry Island, Standish, and that's the limit.
And good evening, I'm Mike McClellan. I live in Raymond, Maine. I'm the House Rep for House 66, it's called. It's parts of Raymond, Casco, and Poland.
Good evening, I'm Mark Bryant. We have the other half of Wyndham. Basically, it's North Wyndham and East Wyndham, and I represent House District 24.
So as you know, our interest is things that affect education. So specifically, we'd like to hear some comments about referendum question number 2, which is an act to establish a fund to advance public kindergarten to grade 12 education. It's a citizen-initiated referendum question that seeks to increase state aid to public schools by instituting a surcharge of 3% on main income taxes for those with incomes above $200,000. So I don't know if you guys drew straws or who gets to go first.
I was just given that assignment from my right side, at least, which I'm happy to share. Just a word or two. I would say this about question 2. I think part of our job tonight is to explain to you what the realities are of this, as opposed so much of whether or not individuals are going to be voting for it or against it, although we can do that too. My concern about question 2, the good thing about question 2 is the money is designed by purpose to go to education, local education communities. I believe RSU 14 is scheduled for $2.8 million or thereabouts. That's the good news. The bad news is, having been part of the chair of the Appropriations Committee and having helped with writing 5 budgets, I can tell you that the money is going to go to the general fund, and I would, just so that everybody understands, in my opinion, I believe that money will be, some of it at least, will be diverted elsewhere, especially during the last month of the budget writing session, because that, in fact, is what happens every single time. It's happened with the 55%. It's happened with other funds that are intended to go one way or the other. Unlike the transportation fund, this is not dedicated. So we can all say where we want it to go. The law can say where it wants it to go, but the fact of the matter is it goes into the general fund, and that's where it will be either taken out or not taken out for the purpose of education. So I'll leave it at that, and people can take it from there.
Well, I'll jump in. I'm a very strong no. Actually, I'll just say I'm a strong no on all of the referendum items. And I agree a lot with what Bill said. There's no guarantee that the money will go where it's intended. And I have to wonder, it makes you think of the health insurance bill we had a couple of years ago. Why would you create a bill that wasn't going to solve the problem? We're hearing that I've heard anywhere from 60 to 80 school systems are not going to get money out of this. So I don't know why you would do that. And there's a bigger problem. I'm on the education committee. The funding formula, as you know, is difficult to maneuver. So I don't know why you would do that. And I guess I think just for myself, I have a list a mile long, but I won't go through it all because there's other people here. I will say it almost comes to a philosophical thing for me. We have creators. We have people that are in businesses. I think when you look at people who have small businesses, they often do their taxes as individuals. So this small businesses, your corner store may very well fall under this and be hammered by this. Why do we always want to punish creators, by doing this and then forcing them either to move away or just use tax advantages that are there that are legal but hurt the state? I think there's a lot of other things we could do. Again, if people don't get to it, I'd love to come back and say more, but I'm very strong. And actually, it's interesting to say, first time in history, Governor LePage and Governor Baldacci are both against this bill. So that says something to me.
I'll key off from the remarks that Mike made on business. I serve on this session is called Labor, Commerce, and Research and Economic Development. When I was there before, it was business research, same thing. So for 10 years, I've sat at the table and we've worked so diligently to make decisions that were healthy for business, to the point that we would say what is a tool to recruit them. And when I look at this, I think of the young families that say, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Young families, young children, of course. As Bill said, it's got, that's a very laudable goal. But when you stop and think what it takes to pay for it, and I see it as kind of a vicious circle, because the businesses perhaps won't come that we would like to recruit or are interested in name. And the other thing that we have found over on our committee is that we're getting to a point in so many of our really strategic professions that we're not replacing like we should. We're going to have a real shortage in particular engineering. We struggle with nursing. Obviously, we're always searching to find dentists that will come to Maine, especially to be in the rim counties, to take care of the people up there and out on our islands. And it is a very difficult thing to get them to come. And now we were really somewhat instrumental in the dental school opening. And so we're going to have some nice young, new, trained professional dentists, and with a lot of debt, I would imagine. And then we hit them eventually with something like this. So I almost see it as a downward spiral in trying to attempt to do something very positive.
There we go. Thank you. So one of my big issues is that we put a lot of money towards education in the last budget. I think it was about $80 million. We also put in another $15 million this last budget cycle, and we did that because we had some mill closures in some towns, and the valuations of those towns went bad, so the EPS formula determined that more money needed to go to those communities. I believe that's what happened. With that $15 million sort of increase in school funding or state aid to local schools, we decided to form a Blue Ribbon Commission, and I wrote down what the mission statement of that Blue Ribbon Commission is, and the commission is tasked with examining increasing costs throughout the public education system in Maine and to recommend action to reform public education funding and to improve student performance in the state. So I think that Blue Ribbon Commission, it got off to a rocky start. I think that we all heard about that, and I know that they've had their second meeting now, I believe, but I think that we're really probably going to be looking at what they determine over the next couple of years and try to figure out how we're going to make this school funding formula work. As Senator Diamond said, that if this just goes straight into the budget, that money may not necessarily be rooted towards education, and it won't be doing what it's supposed to be doing. And we also may not be hitting the communities that actually need it most by the way this is written. So I personally, I'd like to wait. I'd like to see what comes out of that funding discussion. Anyways, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us here. I think I may be the lone outsider in this panel here, but I think our business is going to flourish with well-educated children, and I think that we need to put a priority on the education first, feed them from the beginning instead of trying to take care of them on the other side. And so I'll err on the side. I do realize, I've been in there for 10 years, I do realize that the budget is manipulated and there's no lockbox for this money. But I think it sends a message that education is our priority, and for that reason, I'm going to be supporting it.
I just want to follow up on that. Again, the education piece is the priority here, and that's really important, and I support that as well. But I think part of tonight is to share with you what our expectations are should this pass. And my purpose to you tonight is to say, if this does pass, please don't spend the $2.8 million that they say is coming your way, only because the reality is that it probably won't be that much, A, and B, we don't even know if it'll be anything at all. So, I mean, I think what's more important is that you hear from us where we think that money is going to be either coming or not coming. Obviously I agree with Mark on the education piece, but I just don't want us. I don't want you to be deceived. I don't want the voters to be deceived to think that now this is an automatic. It's definitely going to happen. That's all.
Yeah. Excuse me. Can you just clarify for me as well, because with the citizen initiatives, the citizen referendums, just because they pass doesn't mean that they're going to be enacted. Is that correct? Can you clarify how it all works?
A citizen initiative is a bill, just like any bill that we might put in. Once that's passed by the people, then that becomes law. Now, just like any other law that can be amended, it can be struck down. Although I think everybody here would agree that once people pass something, a referendum, it would be very rare to have the legislature then turn around and kill the bill. But in fact, it is another bill, is all it is, and it's treated and can receive amendments. It can receive, as I say, it can be struck down as well. So
you've probably heard kind of the saying that you can't ask the next legislature to do something, like we can't have the next one do something. So if you go back, I went and looked. If you go back, I think it was 2003 or 4 when the 55% referendum passed, and actually, when you look at it politically, they should have funded it because everybody was kind of on the same team. Didn't happen because it's a lot of money. And my understanding, and I don't know if maybe some of you folks actually were there at the time, there was actually some kind of a 4-year plan to do it, and they never got there. So yeah, you never know what's going to happen.
The other thing that concerned me as, excuse me, being on the Greater Gloucester School Board for 13 years and being on negotiations, I just tried to think about how that, works with that group, because you've got this higher entity that comes in, but it is all based on the funding formula, which we have winners and losers. Mm-hmm. And so when you try to mesh those two, I would have a lot of sympathy for what is going to take place after that with the lesser. And I would think, again, that's a tool where you have some, I'm going to say again, the outer rim, where sometimes teachers don't want to go that far away. Well, if they're not even coming close, we already know there's inequities with different towns. I just see this as sort of bringing more separation in salaries for the teachers right across straight across Maine.
It's interesting because last week a couple of us went to the MSMA school board conference. And I was in a session where there was a school board member in the audience who was part of the referendum and a great proponent, and specifically said that there is a separate fund for this money. And some of us were scratching our heads because and it was concerning to hear that someone who was inside, in the loop, was saying that this money was specifically dedicated for education, which at the time, and I've since done some research, and you've clarified that that's not the case. That's not how this works. And nobody, I think, on this board would say we don't want more money. But the other part is you get 2.8, And the public is going to look at you and say, well, I want my taxes reduced.
Right.
So there's that balance there too. Oh, you got 2.8? Well, then you don't need that much money. Let's reduce the budget by that much, and your taxes are reduced. So it's I think a confusing referendum. I don't know how that works, but it's concerning that there's a mixed message.
If it's not in the Constitution, such as the highway fund, that it's dedicated revenue, then it's not dedicated revenue
Yeah.
in reality.
And I think we've seen some of the casino we were talking about earlier. What do they call that? The spinny. There's like a spinny wheel where all the money goes in different
The
directions.
cascade.
Cascade. Thank you. And then I know Governor LePage at least once went to the well and changed things. So yeah, it is frustrating.
I think another thing that sort of gets into that balance too is that, you know, when we are talking about sort of changing our top marginal tax bracket, you know, in the state, I mean, right now, if this were to get funded, we're talking about 10.1% for our top marginal tax bracket, and that would kick in at what, $200,000. This bill right here, it sets the well, yeah, it makes it so if you're earning over $200,000 a year, that's 10.1%. That'll give us the second highest top marginal tax bracket in this state, in the country. The highest is in California, and that's 13%. And the difficulty with that one is that theirs doesn't even kick in until $1 million. So we'll have the highest top marginal tax bracket in the country until we, you know, hit that $1 million, which is a little bit of an issue. I mean, I think when we look at this and we look at the pass-through corporations that people are talking about, so your LLPs, your LLCs, you know, you're talking about small businesses that report their incomes as if it's their own personal money. Well, you know, we know that they sink that money back into their businesses, increase inventory, and all of that other stuff, hire people. If we're going to continue to be able to have people getting taxed at that 10.1% rate, we certainly don't want to drive people away from the state either once we've actually sort of, you know, instituted a policy like this. You know, probably there's other ways that we can look at the taxes and everything else, ways that we can, you know, spread this to the tourists that are coming in or the seasonal users in Maine, but we're talking about only putting it on the income tax, and we're not looking at other ways to generate that revenue. And certainly if we have something like this and our schools are counting on it, we have to be able to have a way to pay for that, and that's not driving people away from earning money in the state of Maine and paying into the system that we all pay into.
Other questions?
Just a question, maybe I'll address it to you since you're the one in favor. Mr. Bryant, my son's in 7th grade, and if this bill was to pass, that money was to be put into school. How much? What do you think would be the benefit to his education? What would I see as a parent out of that additional money? What?
Well, I'm not sure any of that money is going to be there. So
well, let's say it was. I mean, what would you see the growth of his education from what the track is now?
I'm not so sure that money is the whole equation, and that's the issue. That's only a piece of it. You have depends on your administrators, depends on your school boards and all that. So to say that itself is going to do wondrous things, I don't see it happen.
Okay.
Oh, whoa.
The upside of this could be the upside of this could be is that maybe this will give more life to the 55%. And so maybe there's some way that could get a new life, because right now it doesn't have a good life. It's in the 40s, I think. The highest it ever got was 2009, and it was 53%. So there's some good. There could be some good things that would come from this as well. But I think you've heard all the. What bothers me the most is that people are going to vote for this and expect that money to be there. And I just want you, as the leaders of our educational system, to know that that's probably not the case.
We thank you for your candor.
I have just one more thing to add, and that is we talk so much about educating our children and then they have to leave the state to get a job. And we talk about the kids that already leave and get their education and can't get back. And I know in my personal case, the children found jobs I was like this, you know, like mothers are all the time. It's like, well, I hope they can get, you know, continue and add to their resume, and eventually, if they want to come home. See, that's the difference in when I say it. I love to see the kids fly, but if they also want to fly home, I want there to be something for them to come back here, to engage in their communities, to help, because obviously we know we're the oldest state in the nation. We're very gray. And if we don't get some of those young people back to be near families and in communities and really dig in and network with their faith groups, with the community for the children, I don't know who's going to take care of everybody, but from a parent's standpoint, that can be a concern if you've had older children and you're hoping they're going to get home, because they may do some really great things, that resume looks good, and they finally see something at home, and then they look at this. I think of it as a kind of a deterrent to a young couple or a medium-aged couple, may even be moving family back, and then all of a sudden they see that bracket that they're going to get really hit so hard when they want to come back and add to our communities in our state.
Anybody else have questions?
Maybe you could just clarify, since it was voted at 55%. I mean, just for the sake of the public, why that didn't happen.
I can tell you exactly why it didn't happen, because the money wasn't there in terms of priorities. When I was on the PROPS and we were doing the budget, we went as far as we could go. That's the year we got to 53%, but there was nothing left.
Right.
So the 55, again, this is, in my opinion, is very difficult to legislate through referendum, because there's no public hearings, you can't amend anything, people can't ask questions. It's usually boiled down to a simple yes or no, and you don't have an opportunity to make it better. And that's why I used to be a big supporter of referendums, but I'm becoming very skeptical now, because it's become a cottage industry just to get the signatures on for the referendum to pass, and then for whatever special interest. And I think it makes it a very difficult way to conduct legislation.
Thank you.
Yes. And what disturbs me is the fact that education is too often used as a buzzword to generate support, such as with the marijuana initiative. It's said in there in some of the advertisements that this increased tax that we will be receiving from the sale of marijuana will be available to help schools, and it's just very disturbing to hear that, and I just wish that there was more truth in advertising.
Well, the way you said that, probably, I mean, that is true. It would be available to help education. Does it get there?
Right.
You know, I just want to comment on your thing, and Bill or Sandy, Don could tell me. I've heard there's not really a definition of what the 55% actually is,
Yeah,
and I know,
that's what I was
you know, in
gonna say.
recent years, as retirements and things have been thrown into it all. I have one of my peers on the education committee sent me a link. So, of course, they sent me a link, and I read it, but it doesn't make sense to me. But to me, that's a problem too. Is we don't even know
What that means.
what is education. You
Yeah.
know? So how can if we can't define it? How can we solve it? So, yeah.
I was going to add that too.
Yep. And the marijuana bill, by the way, another proof that we shouldn't be doing this via referendum is because that's a 30-page bill, and it sets up an entire way of establishing the marijuana law. And even as far as the tax, the 10% tax, the agriculture department's now will be charged to put it all together. I mean, it's just crazy to legislate through referendum when it's that complex. 30 pages. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Anybody else? While we have them?
This is it. This is it.
No, I thank you for the clarity. I know. It's nice to hear from you guys.
You know, I want to thank you for bringing that point up, though, because it's not the first time that I have heard that the petition folks really were not as well acquainted. And I'm not picking them, but
No.
you hear these things. People say, well, they said, and I said, well, I'm sorry they said it. Because I have to now tell you, and I'm just going to say on a particular bill, the minimum wage bill, I think some people heard that or didn't hear that the tip credit would go away. That I was getting calls on that again because that came out. We had done some work on that in our committee over in business, and I said no, that is coming out at the end. It's going to be out there a little ways, but it's going to come out. and they were bound and determined. So, that's unfortunate because that could have, those things make a difference when people are signing. So,
Yeah,
They
it
do.
does.
Senator Diamond said the vetting process
Isn't
in a
there.
referendum. No matter which side you're on, it's not a good thing.
Right.
I mean, add to that real quick. So the other piece with the referendum, like they were just saying, in the legislature, we hear from proponents, we hear from opponents, we hear from people that are neutral, sort of on a position. Everybody gets up and they get to speak once, which is pretty good. If they have a lot of money, it doesn't mean they get to speak more than everybody else, and we have to hear them any more than anybody else. At that point, we have the ability to sort of amend it and everything. And by then, we've all read the bill in committee and we've looked at it and we've really thought about it and everything. Well, I think this year, on November 8th, it's everybody's opportunity to be a legislator for the day. So, what that means is that you going to the Secretary of State's website. There's 43 pages of bill text. I think it's about 43 pages of bill text for people to comb through and read and understand every part of, as well as, go out there and try to, grab both the proponent and opponent positions and try to make a decision and make sense of it. And, it's not just about reading that referendum question that's on the ballot. So, I'm glad that you guys invited us here tonight to have this discussion and at least get to talk about some of the proponent and opponent positions on this.
The other
this
side is
referendum.
that's another reason the legislature has 17 different committees, jurisdiction with people, experts in those fields, dissecting them, and just like you're doing with your budget for the school and all that. And so that makes a lot more sense in the vetting process, no matter which side you're on either, or any of the issues. And that's back to what I think we're all saying in the end, that for or against it, the vetting process isn't there, so it's not productive.
It's funny, not to contradict you, but my wife's an educator. I was in schools. My kids went to school, of course, all that. I've learned so much in 6 years about how much I don't know. And I think of the marijuana bill. One of those few people, I never tried marijuana when I was a kid, just didn't do it. So I don't have that perspective. And I've been really reached over the years using my time listening to radio and stuff, hearing people in schools talk about when they see kids coming into the schools, the officer friendlies and educators talking about what they see it does, and I believe them. And I don't have the perspective, but I've done the research and looked to people that do know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for taking your time and
Appreciate it.
coming.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Come again, just let us know.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We work well together, brother.
We're gonna get a band.
Yeah, I know. Go on the road, the road show.
Thank you all.
I shouldn't say that, right?
Yeah.
I might not be riding with anybody. It could be crowded, right? Oh,
Good luck to all of you.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll move along to our next agenda item is our lease purchase of copiers.
I move that we award the bid of copiers to Specialized Purchasing Consultants as the low responsible bidder in the amount of $363,295.79 pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4013.
Second.
0013, excuse me.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, would you like to inform us?
I'd be happy to. Sorry. Yes, so every 5 years we generally try to make sure that our fleet is made new so that it would be more functional for the schools, and this is that time. So we're at the 5th year. We, as you see from the next motion, engage in a lease purchase for these. But this particular bid represents 84 devices. So that 363,000 just divided by the 84 is about $4,300 per device. The agreement is with a middle person, if you will, which is SPC, and they will guarantee the machinery for the time that it's in there, and to the extent that it's not working properly, they will replace the machinery at no cost to us. Part of the bid clearly is the per click or the per page copy maintenance cost, which is also included in the bid.
Does anybody have questions? No? We ready to vote? You have a question? Yes,
Yeah.
sir?
In the how will there be any that are coming off lease that will be moving out of the district?
Yes, but also there will be machinery that has usage, but it will be placed into a school that might not need as much volume. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's moved around, but some of the equipment is.
They're staying in district, but some are they taking off lease going out?
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
we have an agreement to remove hard drives?
Yes, I believe we do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Good point.
Anybody else? All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Somebody could make a motion.
I move to authorize the superintendent to enter into the financing agreement for the lease purchase of the awarded bid for copiers through Androscoggin Bank at $363,296 at 2.59% fixed, amortized over 5 years at an annual cost of $77,736.09, should that be in the best interest of the district.
Second. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's job description. Sandy or Don, did you want to speak to this?
Really just a time to update my job description, and as you know, there's 8 pages, and I think it's pretty thorough. If I'm not mistaken, we looked at several job descriptions across particularly Cumberland County, and I think from my perspective this is a well done job description. So I don't think tonight you would vote on it, but this is the one job description that you would want to vote on if you put it on for the following.
Okay. Did
I don't
anybody
think
have
it's long
questions?
enough.
I know.
I think we should ask you to do
Wow.
More pages.
I want 10. I want 10
We
days.
learn a word,
Even 10 would be nice.
micromanaging.
Yeah. Did anybody have any questions about this? Because we will vote on it next time. No? Looks good.
No, yeah, I like the hybrid format of the two that we had before.
Okay.
Sir? Because she always has questions. Are we good?
Yes,
Okay.
and thank you for the work it took to put this together.
Okay. We have no minutes to approve, so we'll move along to committee reports. Who
Nothing new since last.
you updated us on technology last time?
Yep.
Any other committees met since our last policy?
I can do facilities. The facilities committee, as you know, we had a workshop scheduled and postponed it, and we met this week to we had some information we had to gather from the state, and we needed some legal opinions in lieu of the new construction cycle that we recently learned of. And so I think it's November 16th. We'll be doing that workshop again, and so I know you're all looking forward to that. And then in the policy realm, tomorrow we're looking at the facilities use policy, and we're going to be reviewing the fee schedule. And next week we're going to be looking at special ed policies that, as I mentioned, we don't have on the books, but Lisa's recommending that we put on the books. And there's something else, but I can't think of it. But those are the two biggies.
Graduation.
Oh, thank you.
That's
That
a
is
couple
a
of
pretty
weeks.
big one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
That's the biggest one.
I just don't remember when that was.
Yeah, no. And either next week or the following week, we're going to be meeting with Chris and Lisa regarding the graduation policy pursuant to proficiency-based as it relates to special ed students in their IEP, and perhaps changing the language in that to reflect how we want to move forward with those kiddos in the district.
Okay. Any other committees met? No? All right.
If I could just update you
Of
on
course.
a couple of committees that I've been working on, part of the strategic plan. One of them is the homework committee, and again, if any board member would want to join this committee, we welcome that.
We had a volunteer.
I'm sorry.
I missed the email, so I'm a little late, but yes.
Great to have you on board. So we met today, and really today was an opportunity to just talk about our own experiences with homework, both as a parent and as a child when we were in school. And it was just really a good list to understand some of the struggles that people have with homework. And this came from last year when we met with the students at the high school, and goal two is really looking at the student and the emotional needs of students, and particularly at the high school through the survey last year, through the strategic plan. Students are juggling a lot of things in school, and homework is one of those. So Kim McBride is the chair, and our next task is to each read several articles and come back and talk about the research. And just so you know, the next meeting is December 6th, January 10th, and February 7th. So, and again, at some point in time, I hope to show you part of the website where we have all this documentation, all the minutes, and we actually have pictures of what's coming out of the meetings, so it gives it a little more relevancy. The other quick committee is the grading committee, really looking at how people should be grading in a standards-based system. And today we had a facilitator there who was from the Great Schools Partnership. And again, it was raising some assumptions, some beliefs about grading procedures. And the idea now is to look at the research as we come back at our next meeting. This committee, I mean, I think homework is a challenge, but when you look at grading procedures and to try to build consistency and to have the jump rope system in place and a standards-based system, it begins to get really messy. There's a lot of moving parts with this type of work. So I think this is probably one of our more important committees, and again, I'm very excited that we have a facilitator that can really put us through some protocols to really get to the depth of this work. And the next meeting is November 16th and December 13th. So, yeah.
What's the makeup of the grading?
Members?
The members.
All through. Each school is represented.
Right. So, teachers, principals.
Yeah, pretty much teachers, but administration is also there as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I've got a list here of,
I'd be
we
interested
can,
in that.
yeah.
Of course, it is something that I am extremely familiar with and have very firm opinions about. But I'm glad that you're seeking more information about it.
Yep. Good.
Just quickly, are you done?
No. Go ahead.
Well, finish up.
Well, I just want to also, I know I've kind of on my Twitter have talked about Dr. Rick Nickerson, about the wonderful award. 25 music teachers have been selected for the 2017 Music Education Award, created by the Recording Academy and the Grammy Foundation to recognize current educators across the country who have made a significant and lasting contribution to the field of music education. And Rick Nickerson was nominated in that list of 25 educators. So whether or not it goes beyond receiving the award, just the fact that he has been nominated is phenomenal.
Big honor.
It really is.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say on the homework piece, I'm just so happy to hear that that came out of that, because I went to a few of those lunches, and some of these kids, of course, took their work so much more serious than I ever did as a high school. And to hear what they did for hours and all that, I didn't know how much people were listening to that. I mean, I guess I heard it. So I just thank you very much that you took that to heart and are working on that, because I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Good, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say that we heard that you guys are addressing that, and so on student council, we're going to move to get student input more on, like, specifically on the homework, because last year our summits were on habits of work, and that was just kind of brought up as a second topic. So we're considering doing either the summits early or just sending out surveys, and our goal is that this will give us a lot of, like, diverse feedback, because everyone has, like, a strong opinion on homework, and so we'll get a lot of input from, like, across the board in the school, because a lot of times some issues we only get input from, like, people that are in, like, the higher level classes or lower level classes, and it's hard to get, like, everyone to agree or even input, and so I think this would be good. And so we're working on that.
Great, thank you.
Everything we're tackling.
Thank you.
Isn't there a committee that was just formed too about school start times?
That's what I was just going to ask. Isn't there another committee?
There is, and they met this week too. I was not able to attend that meeting, but yeah, they met this week, and I can report on that at the next.
Dawn is our representative
Yeah.
for that one. Studying school start times.
Can I
Okay.
just ask a question about the homework committee? Is it specifically the high school homework load, or are we looking at big picture?
Big
everybody?
picture, yeah.
As a
Okay.
mother of wide range, that's important
Right.
to me that we're addressing, we're looking at it with everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
And what's really interesting is what the research will say, because I think that's going to be really telling to us as a committee. Because I think we've all experienced good homework and then not so good homework, and
Busy work.
what it can do on a family and some of the struggles. Yeah.
I think it's very awesome that we've put together that group to even look at it I think is great. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate the effort,
Good.
and I love that you guys are taking the initiative to be part of it and let your voices be heard. That's really important, and I think that's really great.
It's been in the news a lot, so I guess it's a national trend. That's good that we're taking that on.
I feel like a lot of students will complain about things like that, but they never really take the initiative. And so I'm glad that it was brought up so that we can let our voices be heard. And as you it kind of reminded me, I think next meeting I'm going to mention to Miss Wilson, who's the leader, teacher leader for student council, that maybe we could try to reach out to the middle schools as well. And that would be a good idea that I hadn't thought of until now.
Yeah,
You
it's a
had
good
mentioned
idea.
that. Because I know the Wyndham one has a student council, and we've tried to do some things with them, and then I assume that the middle school must obviously too. So if we could get their input too.
I don't think they do.
They don't.
No, I don't think they
Should get
do.
on
Oh,
that.
I know. We need to get on that. All right. Moving along to board roundtable, opportunity for board members to address the community. Ms. Cummings, we can start with you.
Great. I really liked the Queen concert that was the tribute concert.
Did you go?
I went to that. It was really, really good. It was exciting to see all the people rocking out in the middle of the place. And I liked the MSMA conference that we went to. A lot of great information from that. It's really good.
Ms. Keeney, anything to share?
Kiss Me Kate is coming up, the high school production. First weekend, I had to pull out my calendar so I could see, because the first show I think is the 11th.
I think so. That's Friday.
Yeah, so it's the 11th and 12th and the 18th and 19th. At the high school. Yay.
Megan, I would love to come to lunch with the student council.
When we got around to her again, I was going to ask her.
She's got something to say about it.
For breakfast.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, good. Then we'll get to you.
We had scheduled a date for November 10th, and I don't know if that's.
oh, that's next week.
Yes. I was
Thursday?
going to email all of you. I was going to mention at the last meeting, but then it was postponed.
Oh, right. So you didn't see us.
Right, and then I tried to email you, and I didn't have anyone's email. I wasn't really able to use my computer. So I was
We'll
like,
fix that.
I don't know what to do. But
fix
it's
that.
November 10th, but we could reschedule it if no one's able to come, because I know now it's really kind of last minute.
It's
What time?
It's Thursday.
It's usually during all three lunches. I don't know the time.
Like around 10:30 we get.
Yeah.
Right. First lunch at the high school is like 10:25ish or something.
Yeah, around then.
It's very early. It seems like it should be brunch.
I was going to say, didn't we talk a little bit about maybe doing a breakfast?
We did. Did you bring that to your peoples?
Yeah, Mr. Howell and I talked about that, and we're meeting again tomorrow morning, so we'll probably talk more about how to go about that, because breakfast, is kind of like a chaotic time
Oh, is it?
in the cafeteria, and
Oh.
people aren't really sitting. It's more just everyone
Grab and go.
huddles, or they leave. Yeah, it's just.
Can you tell me how the lunch is? Because I wasn't here last year for that, so I know there's 3 separate lunches. So how does it kind of work?
We were there for all of them. If you could be, or
And you
whatever
have
you
a
could
different
come
group of
for.
students come in for each of the lunch periods.
That's the idea.
How are the students? Because like an open door, like any student can just come in and hang out? Is there a group of students that's kind of tasked with sitting and tolerating us for lunch, or
All of the
like-
above. Sometimes it would be an eclectic bunch that Ms. DeVoe would round up. Sometimes it was just the student council members,
Mhm.
but the goal is to really have more of a diverse group.
Right.
So, and I don't know how many people are available for lunch, but even if you could stop by for one of the lunch periods, they're pretty quick. Isn't it only like 20 minutes?
Yeah.
You guys have to eat quick.
One more question. It sounds like you would plan on doing more than one occurrence of this, like not just November 10th.
It's usually monthly.
Yeah, we were doing
Okay.
it every month.
Is it something that maybe we will set up on a reoccurring, like it's the third Wednesday or whatever?
Yeah.
So
I
that we
believe
can.
it is the third week, or not third. It's like the first. It was the first Thursday of every month that we had done before.
It was a regular schedule,
Okay.
and they did
Right.
send us an email with the schedule.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Selfishly, I'd love to see at least one be a breakfast. Because
Yeah, we are working
that's-
on still trying to
I
like
wouldn't
make
be
it
able to
work.
go anymore.
Yeah, not everyone, but just one, because I haven't been able to go
Right,
since
'cause-
I've been on the board.
Right.
So
Yeah.
kids though aren't getting there till 7,
Yeah,
and then you
people
would only
usually-
have what, 15 minutes though before you had to get to class?
Right, because class starts at 7:25.
Yeah, so that's kind of a tight. Unless we all want to get there at 6:30.
We can have breakfast at
And
your
that's
house. I
when I
heard
get
you were a
there.
very fun house
Do
with
you?
kids.
You get there at 6:30?
Or earlier. Depends on-
Chocolate chip pancakes.
Well, if there's muffins and things, we could probably get some people to go.
Yeah. And Mr. Howell was talking about maybe having like a room outside of the cafeteria for all of us to go to, kind of like the luncheons, and seeing if we can he can pull students. Maybe they could be late for class.
Threaten
Late for
If that way we
class.
could get
That would be a
late.
good bribery
You're
tool.
tired. You want the slip? Well, get in there with
That's
the
right. That might work.
That's that more tomorrow morning.
Okay. Okay. Pete, did you have anything you want to add?
Well, I know that Wyndham High School football has a playoff game coming up on Friday night as a home game against Chevrolet. Not exactly sure what time it starts. I think probably 7. And I know some good things have been happening in Wyndham sports. Maybe Megan can fill us in more on that. But
They beat Chevrolet once.
what's that?
They beat Chevrolet once this year.
So get out there and show your support, and also vote on November 8th.
Yes.
Going along with sports, Wyndham's girls, I just looked it up. I wasn't sure if they made it to the playoffs, but they did lose in the playoffs to Scarborough. But they did
Which team?
the girls
Soccer.
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 Yep. And then U14, Wyndham boys travels took state.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
I won't talk about U13.
Any more sports updates that you know of? Anybody in?
I think cross country did pretty well too.
Oh yeah, there's one girl going to the States,
Right.
and then I think
Awesome.
boys is going to the States. Is it? No.
I think it's just girls, but I could be.
Well, I know the girls' team didn't make it to States, but one
Couple did.
girl individually made it to States.
Awesome.
And I think
Awesome.
some of the boys did. I'm not positive
Great.
on that, though.
Anything else? Then I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous.
All right.
Good night.
Okay then.
We have to get
We'll
through
give it
all
to Kate.